I'm an addict. My name is Ron. Let's give it up for Paulette again. And I too would like to thank the convention committee and my friend Nisi for asking me to share my experience on the 7th step. It was amazing having that visual, wasn't it? Yeah. Creative. Yeah. But it's funny also, that's the beauty of Narcotics Anonymous. We have a lot of pain, right? But we can joke and laugh. Because what she's really talking about was pain. Because I don't know about anybody else. On my 6th step, I was full of pain. There was no joking matter. Like you said, I had to go through 1 through 6 to get to 7. And in that process, I'm going to talk a little bit about the 6th step, because for that part of that 6th step was coming once I started to see those defects, and my sponsor made a list for me, right? But the core of the list was anger, resentment, and fear. And then from that, everything started to, branch out. And man, my life was, now it's going to be a transition. Paulette, our personality is a little different. But as she was talking, like her beauty, her glow, everything she talked about is real. But also when you get to that 7th step, that shit don't make a difference. You know what I'm saying? It's when you got to go inside. That's when I had to go inside. That's when I had to get quiet and I had to ask for some motherfucking help. You know what I'm saying? And it wasn't all this. It was, time to do some work. But in that 6th step with the anger, resentment, and fear, in my experience, what I'm going to share with you is how that 6th step manifested itself in my life. But more importantly, at the end, I'll show you how it was removed. Because my experience, like I didn't see it removed in the moment. It came after time. You know what I'm saying? So I got to go back in order to bring it forward. But also, definitely want to also touch one part of the 6th step as well, which is for me the most important part. I need hope. I live on hope every day that today is going to be better than yesterday. Tomorrow is going to be better. Yes, every day has to get better. Otherwise, I feel like I'll go back to use, because that's just how my mind works. I always need hope. But it talks about in the 6th step, like the last paragraph or so, it talks about a vision of hope. It talks about looking about people in the rooms that we see who have some principles, because in the 6th step, we're talking about the defects. So I know about my defects, but I had to look out to see what is it that somebody has that I want to keep me going. Because in my 6th step, I was being dragged along with my defects. And one of them, it's funny, I hadn't planned on sharing this. Of course, I've had some things I was going to share. But there was times when I used to come to this convention, and because of my pride was so strong, I wouldn't tell anybody I needed help. I would sleep out in the parking lot here and just get up for the meeting the next day. And I know tons of people, but I don't want to let them know that I'm broke. And usually it's cold in this time of year. It's kind of warm today, but it's normally cold. But that was part of my false pride. But this is very important part of my story, is how in the 6th step for me, one of the areas you talked about greed and selfishness, and with me, for greed came with money. I was always selfish with with my money. I wanted to do whatever I wanted to do. Now I have 4 children, so I can't always do what I want to do. But it doesn't matter when you're in your defects. You got to do what you want. You got to do what the defects say. And I was always irresponsible with my money. Boom, 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 and so with my 6th step, I got to a point with three situations in my life. I was 20 some plus years clean. I had just gone through a divorce. The mother of my children, my ex-wife, she took the kids and moved to New York. And I started having to take, visitation, which was totally different. And one of the things that I had to do, she was an attorney. And so she had money, so she would fly them down, and I would have to, go to take the bus up to New York to get them and go back and forth. But there was one time when she asked me to drop them off at the airport. And this is at BW. I live in Virginia, and I went to the airport, and I had planned, and this was with the defects, like when it gets to the point where like I went to the airport and I had enough money for an hour's worth of stay. And I took the kids in, they were underage, so you have to wait at the gate until they boarded the airplane before you can leave. And for some reason on this day, the plane was delayed. So I couldn't leave and I had to stay there. So I stayed there. When they finally went, I went back to the car, and the lady at the lady at the cashier said, it's like $12 to leave. I had $6 to my name. Matter of fact, I had $3 on my debit card and $3 cash. No, that's important because she said if I had $6 cash, she can work with me. So I didn't have $3 cash. I mean, I didn't have $6 cash. I had $3 cash, $3 debit card. And she said, and I live near Dulles Airport at this time, and I'm at BWI. And she said, well, you can leave, but the car has to stay here. And so we're talking about humility. You talk about humiliation. We're talking about a grown man just dropping off his kids, and he can't even get out of the garage. And I remember on that day, I called my sponsor who's here in this room. And I told him the situation, and she was able to take his credit card. But I remember as I drove out, I was so angry. And I think it even talks about that in the 7th step, how like it's so many different emotions and feelings that go into that surrender. It's just not like an admission anymore. It was like my heart, my spirit had to like, okay, whatever I'm doing is not working. There's no way that I should not be able to park a car, drop off my kids, exit out, and go home. And the beauty of it is I drove out and I was angry for about 30 seconds, and then after that, all of a sudden this warmness came over me, and it was like, it's going to be okay. And I heard people say this before. This is my first time saying this is never going to happen to me again. Some other shit might happen to me again, but this is not going to happen to me again. And that was the start of my humbly asking God to remove my shortcomings. I don't know about anybody else. I never really learned about money. I was the kind of kid, as a kid, I have a sister. I'm the oldest of 3. We used to get quarters for the allowance for the week. That sounds crazy now, but a quarter back when I was growing up, that's 5 pieces of candy. You know what I'm saying? I had a sister who, when I got my quarter, it was spent within an hour. I had a sister, a week, 2 weeks later, she'd have dollar bills. She's an accountant now, she's an accountant. So the point is, my whole life, I've been unmanageable with money. Another time of being unmanageable is, and I don't know if the person is here, and thank goodness for people in the rooms. My oldest daughter was graduating from college at Florida State. And again, unmanageability, defects of character. I didn't have the money to go down to see her graduate. And somebody, pride is something like, false pride is rough, man. Finally, I broke down and surrendered, and the guy paid my way. But the humiliation of that, I hate to say this, but for a man to go to another man to ask for some help, as far as financial help, for me, was hard. Nothing's wrong with asking for help, but for me to ask somebody for some money to go see my daughter was hard. But fast forward, it happened. I paid him back, and that's what we're going with the 7th step. It's about doing something different. So in these circumstances here, like I told you, I said it's never going to happen again. And I had to move back with my mother, 40-some years old. I don't know. I had to live under her roof with the exact same rules that I had when I was a little kid. Nothing changed. Only thing changed, now they had recycle bins. So she had trash and recycle, and I couldn't mix them. And I'm telling you, it's going to the same place, but she had rules. I had to follow her rules all over again. So humility more, but more important is doing something different. How much time? 'Cause there's one more part that what I'm trying to talk about first is the defects and getting to a point of even just asking for some help. Another part for me was lust. I don't know about anybody else that was, and I used to, no, that's how I was too. I used to look at porn, right? I used to look at porn. So we're talking about change here. I'm talking about change for me, but porn was an issue for me, right? And I don't know about anybody else. They say one is too many and a thousand is never enough. And I remember finding myself at a library one time, public library. And when you gotta go, you gotta go, And I felt myself, and I remember logging on, knowing I shouldn't be logging on. And I remember then all of a sudden I could see myself like Washington Post, Ron C., court in the library, that was a scary feeling, but that's the same thing that when I used to use, that's how it was. It's like at the end of the road, you knew it was about to happen. You didn't know what was going to happen, but something was going to happen. And I was like, I got to stop. And it was a buddy of mine who, he said he doesn't look at porn. And I said the same. I was like, what the fuck? What are you talking about? But what happened in my 7-step experience, my spirit started to change. And it was 2014. It's been almost 11 years since I looked at porn. And I'm not saying nothing's wrong with porn at all. I'm saying for me it was because when I was with my wife now, but was my girlfriend at the time, when I was with her, all I was seeing was what I was seeing on monitors. I remember wanting to have like a real connection with her, and I couldn't have it because I kept just rerunning everything I saw in my mind all the time. It was just like there was no connection. And so here we are, the surrender, the asking for help, the asking, humbly asking God is like, and then for me in that 7-step, like, the spirit just started to change. Like I started to be okay with the good, the bad, and the ugly. I started like just being okay with myself. And then I just started slowly doing something different with the finances. I had to learn how I looked at it was learn the value of a penny. I never knew the value of a penny. So I never looked at it as anything else. Fast forward, that same daughter, she's 33 now. She's a mother, a wife, and I just had a grandchild. I could take them on vacations. I got 4 children. So, I don't know for some reason, I don't know how her husband gets on my account and goes on my trips and doesn't pay. I don't, I mean, he says thank you, but I don't know. We're going family trips, but he never pays. I mean, I just never say anything to him, but the point is the finances are there. You know what I'm saying? I went from $55,000 in debt to being completely debt free. And we're talking about doing something different, getting out of debt, taking care of my responsibilities. Everything's on time. I'm fucking got responsible, so at one point it was a lot of pain, and I'm not, it's very difficult for me to talk about the pain that I used to be in because my life has been like a smooth sail for many years. I just celebrated 36 years last year. And I don't say that, I just say that because it's like at one point I lived in pain every single day. My defects of character would whip my ass, and I had to get to a point spiritually to ask my higher power for help. And it also with it, at first I was looking for it to happen like immediately. And like I would do some work, I would do some changes, and like the following week I wanted the results, and it didn't happen. And that's why I was like, how I kind of started. It's when I look back, I can see like everything most of the stuff has been removed. The last thing that I want to share about is health. I'm greedy. You talked about greedy too. I'm greedy with money and I'm greedy with food. It talks about gluttony. That was one of my defects of character. Like when I eat. And I love candy. I love candy. But one of the things they don't tell you is something called aging in recovery. As we get older, I'm 58. I just turned 58 a week ago. I do yearly physicals. But this year, the doctor was like, I'm pre-diabetic, high cholesterol, and she wants to put me on blood pressure medicine. So the stuff that I love, Five Guys, Chick-fil-A, gummy bears, cereal, pretty much everything, meat, steak, my body was a BMI, everything was out of whack. And the reason why I'm sharing this, because like when you don't even think about none of this stuff. But today, this is my new doing something different. In the last 4 months, I lost about 20 pounds. My pants, everybody's like, are you okay? The first thing I think they think I'm using or something, because I'm much smaller. But I had to change my diet. I had to cut out the salt. I had to cut out the sugar. I had to cut out the meat, the lamb. I love eating. And it was just a day at a time, cutting out all that stuff, drinking water. And more important, it's the work that goes into it. Because even though I'm talking about it in big terms, there's the small steps I had to take each day. Even with the food, it's so much harder to just, so I have to eat oatmeal in the morning, and I put chia seeds, and I put flax seeds and all this stuff. And what that does, it helps me with the food. It helps the cholesterol and all that, but also how you eat is I'm learning how there's a way you should eat for me in order to reduce the sugar. Because there's people in here I know who lost limbs because of diabetes. And I don't know about anybody else. I'll talk about the hope. My hope is I hope my worst days are behind me. I want to have a wonderful life, clean, doing everything and anything I want to do. And I can do that if I continue to do something different. And so with the eating, I just started changing my diet. It's been 4 months and it's been going well. And I ate the only bad part, I cheated today, real bad. And I'm going to tell you how important it is. This is my story. This is all for me and doing something different. So like I went to dough roller and I already know that's a bad place to go anyway. But I got oatmeal, but they had pancakes and they had syrup. And I asked the lady, do you have maple syrup? I don't mind maple syrup because there's a difference for me, but she didn't have it. So I just put the other syrup on anyway. And almost immediately I got a migraine headache. And it's just because it's cornstarch. Just, I haven't eaten processed food in 4 months. Just all of a sudden, and that's just like using. If I use immediately, once it's in my system, it has a reaction. And so in my kind of like sum it up in my 7-step experience. Normally I like to do my 7-step from 1 to 7 and go through like a trajectory. But in my 7-step, I've done it multiple times with my sponsor. The first time was very impactful because that's the first time ever that I became okay with myself. Up until that point in time, I always wanted to be someone else, do something. I just didn't want to be me. And then that time I accepted myself on a deep level and I became okay. Was okay with myself. I'm a kind of person, when I share, I sweat. Nobody can see it, but my back is wet. I look out in the rooms and I get nervous, but in spite of my fear, in spite of my nervousness, I just do my best to share my experience, strength, and hope. And one of the things this year, I felt a lot of love. Like I was looking at other people share on the screen. At the desk, and I was like, they're just sharing their experience, strength, and hope. It's funny when you're on this side, it seems so easy, but when you get here, it's like you get the nervousness. At least I do. So with my 7-step experience, it was a lot about humility of accepting myself on a deep level. It was truly surrendering to asking my higher power to remove my shortcomings. And how I look at shortcomings, if I didn't touch on that, is my defect might be anger or lust. Say fear, but my shortcoming is how I act on it. It's the things that I do. And with that said, yeah, I'd like to thank you about letting me share my experience, strength, and hope. Thanks.